All right, our next panel, USMCA Overall Business Environment, is going to be led by Thomas Karig. He's the Chief Consultant for TKonsult. Thomas.
Good morning. Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Bruce, for the introduction. We are very excited to be here. We hope our colleagues in Mexico will connect momentarily. We will be connecting to the discussion we just heard. I think we're going to continue to talk about some of these topics as well. From another point of view, from the point of view of the companies that are producing vehicles in Mexico. I remind you to send your questions using the QR code that appears at the screens from time to time. And hopefully we're going to see our panelists. Oh yes, I'm seeing them already. So I can introduce the panelists to you. Here present in San Antonio with me is Luis Lozano, President of Toyota Motors of Mexico. Luis, thank you for being here and for coming to San Antonio to this, for many of us, first live event in many, many months. So we're very happy to be here. In Mexico, I say hello to Diego Ramírez. Maybe you can put him on the screen.
Oh, that's Mauricio.
No, yes, no. That's Mauricio. Diego Ramírez is the Director of External and Government Affairs of Nissan Motor Corporation in Mexico. And we also have, on the remote side, Mauricio Kuri, the Director of Communication and Government Affairs of Volkswagen in Mexico. Hi, Mauricio. Mauricio, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Diego. So the auto industry is faced with multiple challenges. This will be the leitmotif of this event for sure. And some of them have to do with the transition to new technologies in the products and the processes, but others are related to external factors. Of course, the pandemic, but also issues that have to do with trade policies. And in the end, both of these factors have led to the most worrisome phenomenon we are facing today, which is supply chain disruptions. Scarcity of components, cost increase of raw materials. So these are times to make bold decisions, to find new ways to overcome these obstacles. And these are the topics I want to discuss with our panelists, and especially understand the situation of car manufacturers in Mexico that also have an important presence in the US. So let's start with Diego Ramírez from Nissan. Can we put him on the screens, please? And I would like to ask Diego.
Yes, Thomas, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, good.
Sure.
I would like to ask Diego, what are the implications that you are seeing for OEMs of the new USMCA's rules of origin? There was a lot of talk in the previous panel about the rule, about the labor value issue, but I think the rules of origin will play a major role in the efforts that auto companies are making today in order to go forward with this new agreement. Diego, what would be your opinion?
Thank you, Thomas, and hello to Luis and Mauricio and everybody that is attending. I think that's a very interesting question, and I think that it's a question also that is not static. It may be evolving. As you remember, when we're in the process of negotiations, maybe we had some idea of what the disruption would be, and maybe this has been changing as we better understand the situation. As you know, with the new USMCA, there are several rules that are changed. Probably the easiest to understand is the RVC, the local value content, the regional value content, which increased. And so this presses the question of how are we going to comply. So naturally what we need to do is localize as much as we can within the region to increase our local value content and be able to achieve. And we have several steps to achieve it. But I think this is, at least on the methodology or the principle, is what we understand the most. Then there were several other specific items that we needed to comply, like core parts, where each of the core parts needs to comply by itself. And this kind of offsets some of the possibilities we had to average different vehicles. So this to the manufacturers brings into question the need to comply specific parts that maybe before weren't needed to comply, and you could import one part and then average it with the rest of the vehicle, and your vehicle would comply and you would be able to export. Having the need to comply with the core parts needs you to change a little bit your strategy and localization and try to have all of the parts being built, or the main parts being built within the region. The other component, as you know, is steel and aluminum. And this was not a requirement under NAFTA rules. It is under USMCA to have 70% buying within the region for steel and aluminum. So this requires us to see where we are getting supplied for steel and aluminum, where we were, and increase the local capacity, especially on steel. See if there is enough capacity within the region, and then if this capacity complies with our own internal requests for quality. Still requires a lot of quality process and verification that we comply, so we comply with all of the regulations on safety especially. So it's not an easy process to acquire a new supplier on steel. It's a long process, lengthy process, where you have to go revise every aspect of your supplier. So that's been a challenge. And lastly, I would say the labor value content, as you said. That, I think, what's been complicated, and maybe at the beginning, everybody assumed the suppliers in the United States or Canada would comply with the $16 per hour requirement. And as we look into it, it's not necessarily that all of them comply. And so this is requires you to look deeply into your suppliers, into their own supply chain, to see where they're complying, what we can improve. And again, this is not an easy task to achieve. And I think that this has required a lot of new processes within the companies inside to implicate many areas that were not really a part of complying with USMCA, to develop process, to develop a cross-functional team to ensure compliance. And then think about your strategy, because companies like Nissan, in our case, while the US is our main export market and is a very important export market for us, it's not the only one. So we cannot go all in on all our suppliers being in US or Canada. We need to maintain a localization. Obviously, as we localize in Mexico, this allows us or helps us to localize in all of the agreements with South America, with Europe. We need to still comply with those. So maybe we need to focalize, or companies need to determine for this export market, this will be my strategy, for this one, the rest, and try to then make a holistic process of purchasing agreements or purchasing strategy going forward. And on the labor, I would say there's also a part where there is some incentives if you have R&D designs, and I think many of our big companies that have been in the region for many years have these R&D centers which allow us to get the credits. But I think that this will be more complicated for newcomers or new companies that are not within the region, that if they want to install a new plant in North America to comply with the USMCA, they will not get offhand all of the credits for R&D. So they would need to create a manufacturing strategy followed by an R&D strategy if they were to achieve the percentage needed. So it is a big disruption. On the labor issues, we have also the ones that are not rules of origin, I would say, related, but also more related to rapid response mechanisms where we've been in the need to do a self-assessment of what our situation is, but especially what our supplier situation is, because if they are not in compliance with the rules, labor rules, this could disrupt our chain and not let us export as we have where we would. So it is, I would say, an important disruption that has implicated a lot of analysis within the companies and to create a whole strategy, and not just a supply chain or R&D strategy, but it needs to be integrated so that we have a complete strategy to continue to be within the region.
Thank you very much, Diego. This was very comprehensive. I think you covered all the important topics. Let me ask Luis and Mauricio if they want to complement what Diego just said. Specifically, Diego touched an important point, which is we need new processes and we need to ensure compliance. And I think from my experience previously, ensuring compliance with all your supplier network is one of the major challenges. And now, Mauricio, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. First of all, thank you for Mexico Now to having me here, and it's a very, very honor to share with you, Thomas, Luis, and Diego, this conversation. And yes, the new challenges we have to reach the regional content has additional protocols that we are following in order to reach on time with enough capabilities that the region has not complete. But in addition of that, we are having additional pressures, like the interpretation that creates a misunderstanding, because Canada and Mexico, it's very, very well adjusted to the trade agreement document. But the interpretation of the USTR at this moment is different. So not only the protocols we are following to reach the 75% of regional content, but the misinterpretation could be additional block to the free fall to the trade, and we need to protect that as an industry. It's important to be clear what are the rules. It's important to be clear all the details, because it's very complex to integrate all the supply chain in this new era, and if the interpretation is not clear, that could have additional risks. So it's the only thing I want to add about this important issue.
Thank you, Mauricio. And Luis, very short, any thoughts on how to ensure compliance?
Well, first of all, I think, just saying and seeing what Mauricio has mentioned, that we think that just by having a USMCA is enough, and sometimes that's not the case. Compliance is a big, big challenge, of course, because if we have interpretation problems or we have different changing policies by governments which are not following the objective of the USMCA, it's going to be very difficult for us to work with our supply chains and make them comply. So in a sense, what I would seek from governments right now is consistency in the case that they have to follow policies, regional policies that have to be applied among the three countries to try to help and facilitate the compliance of the whole chain that, as we have seen, is so complex that if one of the links fails, the whole model fails. So in that sense, I think big challenges. Of course, the interpretation right now is a big factor, because the USMCA is sort of a tool for giving you certainty of things. However, if there's a problem in terms of interpretation, well, you cannot make a good chocolate cake with two recipes. You know, you need one. So in that sense, that's one of the things that we have to seek in order for people to start, and people and companies and the whole chain to work towards the compliance challenge.
Okay. Thank you, Luis. Well, we could make another round probably on this topic. But let's switch a little bit the perspective, and I would like to ask Mauricio about the strain we are seeing in the supply chain in the wake of the pandemic. Chip shortages, other raw material shortages are stopping production frequently in practically all OEMs, and are especially impacting the economics of auto part manufacturers that have already produced the parts that the OEM is going to need, and then the OEM says, I'm sorry, I can't receive your parts because I have to stop production because of the chips. So what else can we do, or what are you doing to avoid more disruptions that we have seen in the last couple of months?
Thank you, Thomas. This is a very interesting topic to discuss, because the automotive sector is closer and closer to the high technology companies and the high technology advantages. The Internet of Things is reached to the automotive sector in many things. In the following years, we are seeing more and more vehicles connected 100 times to the cloud. And many sophisticated devices are involving the regular operations from the current vehicles, like radars and infotainment and many others, that need to increase the capabilities worldwide, the production of semiconductors. But this is not only the automotive industry issue, it is the high-tech issue, because involving every day more and more devices connected to the internet, as cafeterias or refrigerators or Alexas and many others that are connecting our homes and our life to the cloud in a very, very strong way. Just to have data, in 2025, more than 5 billion of devices will be connected permanently to the internet. And that kind of trend, it will be increasing year by year, because the connectivity, it will be the way of life. We have the smartphones, we have the smartwatches, we have the smart cars and the smart cities. So the idea to deal with this is to have the right way to operate with the suppliers, but also with the governments, that distribute in a better way the production of these kind of devices worldwide. The trend for many years was to concentrate the production of these semiconductors mainly in Asia, and the demand right now needs to be better distributed all around the globe in order to have sufficiency for the needs we will face in the following years. So this is a good example how a minimum device could impact in several ways the industry. Because if you should stop because you are not receiving a component that includes this semiconductor, you are also impacting the logistics. So many of our parts that should be put in the line to produce our vehicles right now are into the boxes, and the logistics has a lack of that kind of way to transport and increase the cost of the logistics and create many other problems in the supply chain. So we are working so hard in Volkswagen in a very good way to have a good rhythm of production, not as a way we want, because the demand is above our offer at this moment, because the people are waiting our products there, and some other OEMs have the same problem. The market is bigger than the offer we can, because this problem of the semiconductors, and that has other distortions in the market. But well, let's see what happens. I think we have not a specific date to solve this in the following months. We are in a good track, and well, as soon as we could have the normal situation, let's see if the market is ready to obtain all the vehicles we are not producing at this moment.
Thank you, Mauricio. Maybe, Luis, could you say something about how the relationship, the business relationship between OEMs and suppliers has to change in the future in order to be able to control and or absorb more efficiently these kinds of disruptions, because the chip shortage may be over at some point in time, as Mauricio says, but other disruptions can always happen. I don't want to think about another pandemic, but shortages of containers stuck in some port or in the Suez Canal are also being managed. So has the relationship with our suppliers to change, have better communications, other business concepts in order to avoid this kind of disruption in the future?
Well, yeah. First of all, I would just like to say a couple of reflections. First, it's impressive how the supply chain of the world changed with the pandemic. You know, it was synchronized, and then the pandemic came, and just the stoppage created this fragility within the complete supply chain. As you mentioned, it's not only the chips, it's ports, it's other components that are being right now a challenge for many industries, not only the automotive industry. The second is the opportunity that this posts for regions. As Mauricio was saying, many of these semiconductors are centralized in Asia. And right now, the governments of regions like Europe or North America should be thinking on how to establish this kind of suppliers in our own regions. Now, towards your question and regarding what companies should do is very relevant. In our case, Toyota has a very sophisticated, complex, and very close relationship with our suppliers. That has allowed us to not be immune by the shortages, but have a lesser impact than other OEMs in the world. I think that we have to keep on working in terms of the coordination, the systems that we're using with our suppliers, and help them, as we have always done, to jump through these obstacles that the supply chain is having. Giving them more clarity in terms of the demand of the products that we're having in each one of the regions, and also helping them to increase their capacity in an orderly fashion as we go forward. So again, I think it's something to think about, the fragility, but I think it's a great opportunity for regions, countries, meaning potential investments for future, but also for the companies to improve their communication within their supply chain.
Yeah, thank you, Luis. I think that's a great thought to remember in this discussion. Diego, you want to add something to this topic?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. Just to make to think out loud, that it's interesting to think that the just-in-time policies and strategies that made us so successful over the last few years is kind of what's having us in this situation at this time. So obviously, nearshoring or having suppliers is key, and we need to do that, and we need to work on it, and we need to work with our suppliers also to be a priority. As Mauricio said earlier, chips are in demand for many components and many devices, not just the auto industry, and I think that's also been a disruption where many suppliers are only automotive, or maybe you have a close relationship, but now it's exploding how many people need it. And the other day somebody was telling me that just a vehicle, they have up to 200 chips, and that's amazing. But then a computer and a television and all the so we're not the only client, and that's an issue. And again, just in time got us where we were today. It's now a little bit of the issue. How are we going to solve it? I think it's what all of us are working very hard on trying to figure out, and having this coordination with our suppliers.
Thank you, Diego. Yes, well, the message is, the things have to change. The way we look at the business is changing, and we have to change accordingly in our companies. Going back to USMCA as a framework, but take into account all these other issues that arise within the supply chain. How is the USMCA and the supply chain issues, how are they impacting the competitiveness of the auto industry in the region, especially in Mexico? And what else can governments do? What else can companies do? Trade associations do to improve competitive conditions for the industry? Luis, maybe you can lead this question. Sure.
Well, as I mentioned in the first question that I complimented what Mauricio said, I think that the answer is integration. And of course, we have thought about the opportunities that USMCA has brought vis-a-vis the NAFTA situation. We have seen the opportunities that many components, because of the increase in the regional value content, had to move from other regions in the world towards North America. And we have seen also how there are some formulas that can't allow you to average things as we used to in the NAFTA agreement, and therefore require additional processes in North America. Now, that's all perfect, and that's all in the content of the USMCA. However, again, we need to be consistent with public policies in each one of our countries. So what's the objective at the end of the USMCA? So should it be just enough to have the USMCA, or should we be seeking, as countries of a region, to have more integration and therefore start collaborating in consistent public policies that can allow us to be more competitive and to bring those integrations and bring those suppliers into the region? And that's where things start getting a little bit suspicious. We've seen governments act on their own with different constitutional reforms, like the one we have right now in Mexico, which may not be consistent with the competitiveness of the region, or some other governments trying to push for incentives on specific vehicles that are made under specific circumstances of their markets. That's not consistent with the USMCA spirit. So at the end, we need a larger and broader strategy and a larger and broader commitment from countries and companies towards the integration of the region. And that's the only way we're going to achieve to be more competitive, not the other way around.
Okay, that sounds like a big challenge, and a couple of issues that are not resolved right now. Maybe Mauricio, do you have an opinion on when we talk about the impact on the competitiveness? Is there a risk that these conditions, especially USMCA and what the governments are doing, are going to be an obstacle for competitiveness for the auto industry in the region?
Yes, always a risk to be not coordinated or harmonized between the countries, because if the world moves for a better access for energy, for example, and our country goes in a different way, that creates huge risks to have access in the right price or in the right volume for energy, or if there are other countries has protectionist acts to incentivize local production in a different way to the region, that creates distortions that don't give the opportunity to fluent trade between the countries. So we are seeing around the globe different countries that are trying to protect their own economies with the wrong directions. We are seeing the difficulties we have in South America to react to free trade, for example, with Brazil and Argentina, or we are seeing some other initiatives that create more bureaucratic ways to work in order to increase the cost and don't give the facility or the facilitation to create the competitiveness in the region. So yes, always we need to follow up very closely and have an open dialogue with the governments in order to create the right environment to do business, not only in the region but in the world. And we are under a big pressure and many different risks are in many different regions and countries around the globe.
Okay. Thank you, Mauricio. Diego, maybe you could add to this issue, thinking about what is the position of manufacturing in North America, manufacturing in Mexico, compared with the conditions you find in other parts of the world. I mean, all three of you are working for globalized companies and can easily see the advantages and disadvantages that North America has right now.
Thank you. Interesting question. As you say, we're a global company, and I think that we've been very successful in integration. We are a very integrated supply chain. We're very coordinated within the region of North America on having common suppliers and having over the years a set of rules that was very stable. This is not the case in many other countries, or even especially emerging countries, and I think Luis put it well. You need stable conditions, and you need to be able to forecast towards the future, and this had been the case in North America regions for many years, and this has been a great incentive to attract investments into Mexico. So we need to continue that path. We need to have clear set of rules of how we are going to operate. So if I decide to invest in such supplier or in this technology or in this supply chain or this infrastructure, that the investment I make today will still be useful in 5, 10 years, 20 years. That's the long-term vision that we have when we're planning a vehicle. It needs to be a vehicle that is competitive and that you can forecast for 7, 8 years. So that is a challenge, even within USMCA, as has been discussed. There are many rules that are not clear, and then you have the added situation where you have a sunset clause, and that's something that we've not discussed yet, and even internally, because we're still kind of sorting out their rules. But I think that's a big learning point that we had from the renegotiation, where this needs to be a continuous effort on integration. It can be one day somebody set a set of rules, and that's how we're going to operate for the future, because things change in the world. So we need to be adapting that within having foresight of what's to come. And if I make an investment now, it will be profitable and it will help me in my production in 5 or 10 years.
Thank you, Diego. That was a great point for closing this round of discussions. So in the next round, I will just ask each of you, apart from USMCA and supply chains we have already discussed, what other challenges and what other opportunities do you foresee for your companies in the short term and in the midterm? Maybe you could start, Luis?
Of course. I think we're living in a very exciting moment for our industry. The transformation of our companies towards mobility is a crucial opportunity for regions and for the industry and to amplify our businesses around the world. So what I would say is that the biggest jump that right now the day-to-day operations of the disruptions and the USMCA are taking, out of the attention of many people is the fact that the companies that we are right now leading are in a profound transformation period where the way that we're making cars is going to change absolutely. That the cars will not only be, will not be only the only product that we will be selling towards mobility, and also the fact that we're changing in terms of connectivity, in terms of autonomous vehicles are coming, the models of ownership in terms of sharing, and also obviously the electrification, which is, or maybe the biggest thing that we are discussing right now. And in terms of what, what the world's going to do, the US wants to go battery electric, France says that they want to go hydrogen, so there's a very, very exciting moment right now, and obviously when things move so in such a huge manner, they bring a lot of opportunities for not only our industry, but also for the suppliers and for integrating more activities in the future.
Thank you, Luis. Mauricio, would you like to?
Yes, I try to be just focused on infrastructure. As soon as we could have a better infrastructure to have a connectivity on electric vehicles, as soon as the customers would have take the decision on that way. If you have not only the electric stations, but also the connectivity of enough internet on 5G, you could have a better services and a better technology in the country. The problem is to put the governments and society at the same level of knowledge about these kind of challenges we have. Because if we have not have fast progress, as we are seeing happen in US and in Europe or in China, we were losing a great opportunity to have great technologies available sooner in the Mexican market. So I think infrastructure, it's a great opportunity to make business. Infrastructure is a great opportunity to have a better products, and then we need to focus to transmit this need in a wide way to the government in order to create a faster change for a better future for the society, for the industry, and for all of us.
Thank you, Mauricio. Diego, what about Nissan, about challenges and opportunities in the near future?
I think that it is a very exciting moment to be in industry, and everything is changing. And we as Nissan, we have a program with Nissan Intelligent Mobility. So we're not just thinking now of we're a maker of cars. We're an integrated part of mobility, and how will this be in the future, and how will this be adapted to different markets? Not all markets will go at the same rate. Not all markets will have the same strategy. So we need to be flexible. We need to be agile and be able to produce electric markets where electric markets will be most demanded and will be more successful. Other technologies as e-power that we've launched, and then we're about to launch here in Mexico as well, which is an electrified motor but doesn't need to be plugged in. So we need to be agile, and this technology works in Latin America. Where will we change? I think another interesting aspect of where we're going is customers will keep a closer eye on how we are producing the vehicles, not just the product in itself, but how are you doing it? Is it in a sustainable manner? Are you taking care of all of the interests for ESG and human rights and your suppliers as well? I think that's a big important challenge for us to take care of all of our stakeholders going towards the future. Not just the clients, but also where we are based. Are we being a good citizens here in Mexico, and in our case, and trying to support communities and being something that is considered impactful and beneficial for our communities and for our countries. Environmental, I think the access to green energy will be a key competitive factor going towards the future and as well. So there are many aspects, and I think it's becoming a much broader range of issues that we need to focus on, from the production to the delivery to the ownership of the vehicle. Everything needs to be changed, but also everything needs to be integrated. You cannot have isolated programs or isolated ideas. Everything needs to be holistic, and that's a very, very big challenge. If it's a big challenge to comply with USMCA and make sure that you are complying, trying to integrate all of these ideas, I think will be very complicated, but also very, very interesting and very exciting going towards the future.
Thank you very much, Diego, because the topic you touched on and in your final remarks, I think is very important. ESG is something that covers many of the aspects we have been talking about, especially talking about our workforce, our people. Yeah? Maybe some of you could add some thoughts about what do we have to do in addition what we're doing right now in the future, especially in Mexico, in terms of workforce recruitment, workforce training, thinking about digitalization, and on the other side, of course, environmental challenges. And the third part of ESG, the G, that is sometimes is like kind of not mentioned, which is governance, compliance, risk management. So maybe, Luis, could you comment on that for Toyota?
Well, in the case of Toyota, obviously we've seen many challenges right now, but we have focused on our people because our people, we think it's our biggest asset at this point in time. So we have always worked with our team members to train them and to have them in the best situation. And obviously, after the pandemic and the challenge of bringing them or some of the value chain back to work has been challenging, because obviously we've seen as a priority their health and their welfare. Now, going towards the future, evidently, people will remain being the center part of our business, because we require and that to have them in the best position to do this transformation, and this transformation will require training and education, of course. Now, talking about the environmental challenges, something that Diego said that I think is very important is that people are going to be focusing also in how we make our products. Now, people tend to think that the result of the vehicle in terms of the emissions is the relevant portion. However, there are concepts like the life assessment cycle of vehicles and products that also count on how much energy, what kind of energy you used towards manufacturing the vehicle. So therefore, going back to my point, if we don't harmonize regulations, if we don't harmonize policy regionally, it's going to be very difficult to reach that, because we cannot have a country, without an energy policy going against the rest of the countries. To your question to Diego a moment ago in concerning how do you compare, or which region would you compare is doing things correctly, Europe has a great harmonization of regulations that is helping everyone to level up towards, for example, the energy policy. So that's big, huge matter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Luis, Diego, Mauricio, for this discussion. I know there are a lot of things that still have to be said, but unfortunately, Bruce is already looking at us because he has some question for the audience, so we are going to give him the last word.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. We have got some good questions from the audience. Mauricio, one of the things you were talking about is increasing coordination within the supply chain. And one of the questions has to do was, given the financial burden on smaller, lower tier suppliers caused by the pandemic and components shortage, are the OEMs doing enough to help suppliers avoid failure?
Well, that's a trick question, I think. No, it's a good question.
Yeah,
I think it's very. So, you know, in terms of making or doing enough, it's always a very complex thing to say or to respond. I think we are doing, and we are in Toyota working very closely with all our suppliers. We have a great communication. They have great support from our side in terms of training, even, you know, in targets and so on. It's been part of our culture to work with them when things don't work. Now, if something can be enhanced, I think you can always enhance processes. I think it would be unfair to say otherwise. And I think we have to make more efforts towards integrating our suppliers and their activities with our day-to-day operations. So it can always get better. But I think in terms of Toyota, we do a very, very good job.
Luis, do you have something you want to? I'm sorry. Diego, do you have something you want to add to this?
Yes, thank you. I think it's something that we need to do. It's not whether you want to. I think it's nice to have. It's a need going towards the future. And I think that the chip issue has been the clearest idea of how we need to work together. So we try to be very integrated with them. We work on them on many trainings for compliance, for example, for USMCA, for customs issues, for labor issues, which is in fact, it should be their responsibility, legal responsibility, but we do not leave them alone. We walk with them and we work with them because we are a community and we are so much integrated that if one part fails, the whole machinery fails. So there is a big interest. And that's our objective, and we're continuing to do it. And we have right now opportunity to be in Aguascalientes, and you can see it just driving down the road, how integrated and how we work with all of our suppliers that are near us, and that we have a close relationship with them. We work on even on local issues together. Right now, a few months ago with the vaccination, we worked together to have vaccination centers in our plants, and our suppliers could come and get a COVID vaccination here at our plants. So it definitely is in our best interest to continue to work together and to be a community that helps each other to achieve our common goals.
Mauricio, you want to have something to add?
Just in addition, the day is very similar. We have a very close relation to our supply area, not only on the financial, but also on the regulations. In Mexico, the regulations are increasing a lot on the labor issues, on the on many others in logistics. And we are promoting continuously summits in order to train the people, and together with the INA, the Institute for National Parks, that is an association that involves the majority of the suppliers in coordination with us, we are working together in order to create the most friendly environment among these huge transition of regulations we are living in the country. So yes, we are working together in order to create the best scenario possible among this big continuous change we are living in with the USMCA, but also with other regulations in the country.
Thank you. Diego, when you were speaking earlier, you were talking about the challenge and the need to drill down into your supply chain, to pass Tier 1 into Tier 2 for the USMCA. Have you seen any advantages in doing this in this process for your company?
Yeah, I think we've seen some advantages where we get a better understanding of how our supply chain is interconnected. Maybe because if you only look at tier one, then you say, oh, well, my tier one is located half a mile from our plant, and that means I'm completely integrated. But as you drill down and you understand how their supply chains and the tier 2, tier 3, how they work and where the parts are, you can see where the risks are, but also where you have an advantage. So I think it has been an enlightening situation where we've learned a lot of how our suppliers and their suppliers work, and this has helped us to create a more harmonized system and to work together and to plan into the future, seeing what their strengths are and working towards that, planning ahead.
Thank you. One of the other questions has to do with, and this is probably for all three of you, understanding that there are many factors at play and no clear timeline. What is a, quote, safe estimated date when you can say that your company will be back to 100% production? Let's start with Luis.
Well, 100% production, it's very difficult to say. In reality, as I mentioned during my comments in the panel, I don't think it's only the microchips. That may be the most famous of all, but there are some other challenges that we have to surpass. So I wouldn't say a date. I think it's unpredictable.
I think they're ready to, they're willing to settle for a year. What year?
No, I think as I mentioned, the fragility of the supply chain in general has been obvious and evident, and I think we're not done yet. To say, when we finish the microchip thing, it's we're going to go back to basics. We have to see what other things have broken or desynchronized in terms of the situation of the world.
Okay. Diego?
Yeah, I think all of us hope to have the magic ball. And it's not clear. There's so many issues in place that we do what we can control. We work on what we can control to solve the issue as soon as possible, and then move towards that and go on. But we're working on it every day, 24 hours, and that's our objective at this point.
Mauricio, you get the last word here.
No, it's just the same. I think I don't want to repeat the same things, but we are all in the same environment. As soon as we have availability of enough parts and normal situation, we will be available to produce what the market needs.
Yeah, I was stunned by this article I read recently about this backup at ports, where you have just containers upon containers stacked on top of each other waiting to move, and you're going, why are these things, I mean, they're here, why are they not moving? And obviously there's trucking issues. Obviously there's big trucking issues going on, especially in the U.S., and probably other ports as well.
And that posts opportunities of infrastructure for other countries. Yeah. So Long Beach has been a problem for many years. Yeah. So why not, make more ports on that side of the world?
Exactly. Okay. I want to thank our panel, Thomas, Luis, Diego, and Mauricio. Please give them a hand.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation.